I've started a company called Phase One Inc. in 1991, and we did tens of thousands of Phase Ones over the years. About 3-4 years ago, we started winding down that business, passing the request for Phase Ones to our ERS clients. ERS became incorporated in 2017 and its own company, and actually it might have been 2016, and it's just growing by leaps and bounds. And so everything in ERS was designed by environmental professionals for environmental professionals, except for we have some residential reports and some environmental screening reports for financial institutions. I don't know it all, and I put things in common sense terms. So all these webinars, the key is if you pick up one thing that's going to help you in your business, or one idea or something like that to keep you and your company safe and your clients safe from any kind of lawsuits and that kind of thing, and be more competitive, then these webinars have been of value to you. All these webinars are taped, and all the presentations in them, which today this presentation is pretty short and detailed. It's really spelled out in the PowerPoint presentation. So, I try to read some of it. I try to mix it up a little bit to make it interesting. We do a lot of reports for government, Fish and Wildlife, Forestry Service, Department of Water and Resources, all kinds of things, even air boards, because we have some unique things in our report that no one else has. And we'll talk about it really quickly a little later. We do not have sales staff on the ground that are going to come visit you, beat your door down, buy you lunch, buy you treats, give you gifts. The way we control our prices and control our quality, so we have the best quality, the most complete data in the nation, is by not spending all that money on marketing and sales. We do not have salespeople. We only have 1.5, not a half a person, but a half time, customer service people, and they do a fine job for us. So we do appreciate your business. We do work with you. If you have problems, order the wrong site, do a mistake on your address, we rerun that report for you for free. It's that simple. And we do it right away. We're striving to get the turnaround of our packs and our historical data, and all done in a faster rate and more complete. And now we're at about a 48-hour turnaround for just about any pack. That's pretty quick. Our database searches, which can be customized for your needs, our packs can be customized, and our free environmental report writing template for a Phase One that automatically shoots in data into the report is all free to our clients to help them do a better job and get exactly what they need. So we do appreciate your business. We do work to keep your business, but we're not going to wine and dine you. That doesn't get you a better product. That just costs you more money. Believe it or not, when our competitors do that, it costs you money. So which brings us to vapor intrusion. Back in 2013, when the last standards were upgraded for ASTM, and it's being worked on right now, when the last standards were upgraded, Both Partners Engineering and EDR 6-9 months ahead touted that, hey, EDR and Partners reviewed and used this vapor intrusion report from EDR. And it was the next greatest and the only way you're going to be able to comply with the new standards coming out and all that. And it didn't happen. The vapor was not within the standards. It wasn't required to have a separate report. In fact, it stated that using the vapor intrusion guidelines set by Tony Bonacore, which is really EDR, even though he says he doesn't work for EDR anymore, it's still EDR. Didn't become a requirement. You had to address vapor intrusion for several reasons. And we're going to go over those reasons, and we're going to give you facts, not fake news, not convince you to spend more money, but we're going to give you the facts you need in part one to say to a bank, hey, you don't need a separate vapor intrusion report from EDR, because they've got some banks convinced. Or you don't need the tier 1, tier 2 modeling. That's in phase 2. That's the next step after phase 1. And I hope to show you and give you the facts to argue that point, that phase 1 isn't required to do that. So if no one has any questions, we're going to go ahead and continue. That's my little bit of advertising that I try to get in to help pay for my time in these webinars and gain you as a client. So if there's no questions, I'm going to go ahead and get started on vapor intrusion part 1. So be really quick, maybe 20, 30 minutes. It depends how if you end up with any of my stories, which reminds me of just a real quick joke, simple, easy, clean. What do you get when you cross? What happens when you get a broker and a lawyer working together on a property transaction? Anyone know? Broker and a lawyer. Nothing. Possible. But how about a broke lawyer? Anyway, stupid little joke. It was just fun. Broke lawyer. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So vapor intrusion, part 1. Really, I'm going to give you the facts of why you need to do vapor intrusion in your report, address it, but exactly why you don't need to do any sample. You don't need to do a separate vapor intrusion report, and you sure as heck don't need to do tier 1 and tier 2 modeling. That's all next step actions, phase 2. So, and that's according to AAI and all appropriate inquiry and ASTM standards. So let's go ahead and go. So I'm going to read an overall thing. I'm going to put some of my own terms in there so that you can all understand what I'm talking about. And then I'm going to give you the facts on it and the sections in the standard where this all applies. So while completing a phase 1 environmental site assessment, addressing vapor intrusion of hazardous substances and petroleum products is required. All standards, ASTM 15, 27, 13, EPA, AI, and the SBA SOP 5010-5, it's K now, it's not J anymore, require that you address the presence or likely presence in my simple mind, common sense mind is potential for vapor intrusion, which they don't talk about vapor intrusion in any of the standards. They talk migration of hazardous materials. This is a recognized environmental condition, period. No exceptions. Onto the subject property or within the subject buildings. The most common hazardous materials related to vapor intrusion or migration are volatile organic chemicals. Sure, semi-volatile chemicals play a part now and then. The biggest is, of course, VOCs, because when you get auto repair shops, gas stations who use solvents, and you get manufacturing plants and cleaners who use PC, TCE, are the most common volatile organic compounds. So, in probably 95% of the incidences for vapor intrusion. Now remember, vapor intrusion can come from off-site, on-site, anywhere. So let's go ahead and prove this point. So we're going to start right from the beginning. So the ASTM 1527.13 specifically states on 7.1 objective, the purpose of this phase 1 of site assessment is to identify, to the extent feasibly pursuant to the processes prescribed herein, recognized environmental conditions in connection with the property. So what is a recognized environmental condition? So if you go to section 3.2.78 in ASTM 1527.13, a recognized environmental conditions, and we touched on it already, right? The presence or likely presence of any hazardous substance. Remember, likely presence in my feeble mind is potential of any hazardous substances or petroleum products in, on, or at the property due to a release, to under conditions indicative of a release, like a big stain, a big spill, cleanup of a leaking underground storage tank. 3, under conditions that pose a material threat of a future release to the environment. Let's say upstream, and you got an old stream bed running under your site, and upstream, you got a manufacturing plant that used tons and tons of volatile organic chemicals. That's a bad deal. Could be a condition that poses a material threat to a future release to the environment that could affect your site. That's an environmental condition, a recognized environmental condition. So if you have the potential of vapor intrusion, you've got a recognized environmental condition. Clearly. So ASTM 1527.13 further states the following about vapor intrusion or migration. Intrusion and migration are the same thing. But why do I say that? Let's talk about it. In the definition of terms on section 3.2.56, migration, for the purpose of this practice, this is phase 1, ASTM Standards, migrate or migration refers to the movement of hazardous substances. That's VOCs, right? Hazardous substances or petroleum products in any form, including, for example, solid and liquid at the surface or subsurface, groundwater contamination, remember that, and vapor in the subsurface. So that's where we get vapor migration or vapor intrusion. So it also says right here, see note 4, and you're going to love this, and this was put in because of EDR's attempt to cost you more money. Remember that. They're trying to cost you more money to make them more money. We're trying to save you money and time with our webinars. So, note 4, vapor migration in the subsurface is described in Guide E2600. That's true. Tony Bonacore wrote and developed that and really developed it. That's all a tier 1 and tier 2 modeling and stuff for EDR to sell his vapor modeling program and his separate vapor report. However, nothing in this practice should be construed to require application of the Guide E2600 standard to achieve compliance with all appropriate. That's basically saying you don't need to do a separate report in your daily thing of identifying recognized environmental conditions. You have to already address vapor intrusion or vapor migration. And it just needs to be a section in your phase 1 report. But this specifically says you don't need to do a separate report. You really don't need to do any modeling. That's next step actions. So, any questions on this? Does everybody agree with the way I'm interpreting this data? It's pretty clear. It's super factual. So in summary, Note 4 above basically says there is no requirement to prepare a separate report or modeling as part of the all-appropriate inquiry. Does vapor intrusion need to be addressed? Of course it does. Just like any other recognized environmental condition. Migration pulls in vapor intrusion. Vapor is just another form of something to be able to migrate. It could be from on-site, off-site, who knows where, right? It doesn't really matter. But you do need to address it in your phase 1 report. The new standards coming out may make that a little more clear. We're battling that right now. So, yes, just as any potential recognized environmental condition needs to be addressed, below I'll point out how to use the ERS RecCheck report radius search to assist in identifying any vapor intrusion wrecks. Now, that's more part 2. I'm going to go historical. We're going to do a site study on vapor intrusion and really walk through a specific site through the aerials, the topo maps, the RecCheck report, all those things to show you how if you get good historical, do good interviews, and get a good radius search report like our RecCheck report, you will have no problem identifying if there is a recognized environmental condition for vapor intrusion from on-site or off-site. It'll be really clear to you. So that's the facts. You do not need a separate report. You do not need to go beyond addressing whether there is a potential for vapor intrusion on your site, either from on and off site. So someone tell me, what use on the site could cause vapor intrusion currently on the site? What historical use? Anyone? Come on. All you rocket scientists ought to be able to come up with something. USTs, possible. Obviously, it depends what they have, but if it's gasoline, sure. You can get vapor intrusion from the vapors from gasoline. Landfill, absolutely. Methane gas, right? That's vapor intrusion. What about a dry cleaner? Used to be on the site. Of course, dairy. Dairy, where does dairy come along? That's a really good answer because a lot of people don't think about it. Methane, you're absolutely right. What happens is the cows are all confined in pretty tight pastures and stuff and don't really have a room to roam. And so basically what happens is a lot of their cow dung that gets all over, gets all stacked up and piled, and it rains on it, and then that leach oil seeps into cracks and seams in in the ground or soaks into the subsurface, and then it starts to biodegrade. And that biodegradation creates off gases, and methane gas is one of them. And so not only do you have that from dairy, you have the cows die on a regular basis. You know, a big dairy farm will lose a cow, a week at least. And what did they used to do anyway? They'd just dig a big hole and throw them in a pit and bury them. And so the biodegradation of the cow would create methane gas. So if you're going to build a residence over a dairy farm, you really got to do extensive methane gas sampling to ensure there's no problems out there. So very good answers, guys. And in part 2 of this, we're going to go over a lot of those things. And remember, we won't be able to touch on everything because there's a million zillion things that could cause vapor intrusion and provide volatile organic chemicals. So you're absolutely right. Dairy, I like that. So thank you all. David, I'm not sure what you mean by OFFAL, awful. So if you want to give me a little chat and let me know what you mean by that, it'd be cool. So I'm going to move on. Everybody's got the facts. You can take these facts to the bank. And then, I mean it. There are some banks out there still believe it's required to do a separate vapor intrusion report by EDR, and it isn't. It isn't required. Oh, yeah. Politics. That's one thing I really, really try not to talk about in these webinars. Because obviously I'm opinionated, and some of you probably won't like my opinion. Some of you will love my opinion. But let's move on. So basically, you've got the facts to argue that within your phase 1, as long as you address the potential vapor intrusion, you're complying with the phase 1, and there's no need to do a separate vapor intrusion report. Now, back in 2008, I started working with the SBA, me and 2 other individual consultants, environmental consultants, and I can't remember if it was 5 or 6 SBA attorneys, one of them being Eric Adams, who was the lead attorney for the SBA and still the lead attorney for the lawyers who review a lot of these RSRAs. And we came up with the RSRAs and all these practices and this kind of stuff. And since then, it's evolved. Now it's on K. I know this says J, but it's K. And so the SBA had a lot of problems with foreclosing on SBA loans on sites that had dry cleaners on them and getting caught with their guard down because the phase 1 didn't address dry cleaners. Same with gas stations that could have potentially had leaking tanks and stuff. So they just finally said, period, you're required to do something about it. So for special use facilities, it doesn't even matter. If you do a phase 1 that's going to SBA, you have no choice. Their rules or their standards require, it's law now, that on-site dry cleaning facilities, which may have utilized chlorinated solvents such as tetrachloroethylene, PCE, and trichloroethylene, TCE, and or petroleum-based solvents like Stoddard solvent. In the old days, they used Stoddard solvents, in the 1920s, 1930s for cleaning clothes, for dry cleaning. In the course of their business, may present significant cleanup costs if these contaminants have entered the soil vapor, and or groundwater. So, you're probably saying, well, what's this have to do with me? So, this is the key thing, and something that most people don't understand, but so prudent lending practices dictate that SBA requires that any property with on-site dry cleaning facilities, whether currently in operation or operated historically at the site, that doesn't matter for 1 day, 1 week, 1 year, anything, you find one mention of a dry cleaner facility on your site, and they did, do, or likely use chlorinated or petroleum-based solvents, you must do a phase 1 and a phase 2 sampling. Period. That's big. That's why you do historical research, and they're checking that the proper historical research is completed. Now, when you do an RSRA, you got to include the aerial photos and the city directory report so that they can see it, because they don't trust environmental companies to review for that anymore. So this has set precedents. You better be very careful. This should probably be done on every phase 1 you do. So it must undergo a phase 2 environmental site assessment in addition to a phase 1, which would be required due to the NACE codes. So basically, this is important because this is setting a precedent, and eventually the ASTM and AAA standards are going to meet this. They haven't yet. Also, the SBA requires that all environmental professionals, as defined by all appropriate inquiry, doing any work as an environmental professional, whether it's an RSRA or a phase 1, must have at a minimum $1 million in environmental errors and emissions insurance. Must be environmental. If you have professional liability insurance or professional negligence insurance or whatever, but it doesn't cover environmental, doesn't have an rider for environmental, it's worthless. This is all environmental work, and they're going to get you. And you'll become liable, and that isn't good. So think about that. So very briefly, we're going to go over some of the part 2 things and the main things you look for that could cause vapor intrusion. Now, these lists and tables, you can get a copy of these from Susanna, and it'd be, and all you got to do is email her, and she'd be glad to go ahead and provide this information to you if you're our client. If you're not our client, just become our client. Use our rated search report, and you'll get one. You can get anything you want copies of. Her email is susannaL@reccheck.com. No biggie. So she just posted it up there. So if you want copies of this, go ahead and get copies. So let's just briefly go over these lists, because I could go over them, but there's some really cool ones in there. So automotive-related industries, methylene chloride, PERC, TC, toluene, xylenes, methyl ethyl ketone, 1,1,1 trichloroethane, Also, trichloroethene. I mean, there's all kinds of things in automotive repair that could create volatile organic chemicals. One of the things I never really thought about, but if you go to citrus, orange oil, and pine oil cleaners, solvents, and some odor masking products, they have heavy volatile organic chemicals that in high enough levels are, hazardous to human health, and you've got to be really careful with them. So I didn't know that really until I got this list. I would have never looked for that stuff. Manufacturers of personal care products, nail polish remover, colognes, perfumes, rubbing alcohol, hairspray. You know, that cologne and perfume we put on us, right away we smell it. It's a volatile organic chemical, right? There's volatile organic chemicals in there. That's why you smell it. The real question is any of those volatile organic chemicals bad for our health, for us breathing it? Because remember, you can smell down to about 3 parts per million, depending upon how good your nose is, right? And what chemical product it is. So these are just a list of some, but this is a handy tool to hand out to your environmental inspectors or report writers. We've all heard about formaldehyde, but carpets, plywood, pressed wood products used to have a lot of formaldehyde in them. They don't so much anymore. They've been outlawed, still confined, and some of those old plywoods would still be old formaldehyde. And for the most part, it's usually when it's first installed. So that's where you hear about, somebody moved into a brand new house and got sick. So there's a sick house because they kept all the windows closed. A brand new house needs to air out, needs to breathe. And then all these off gases from all the plastics and all the products that have chemicals in them, off gas, and then become a level that's not harmful to your health. But in the beginning, it can be. And so that's something to think about next time you buy a new house. Other environmental factors for vapor intrusion are soil conditions. I mean, the lithology of the soil, if it's medium to fine to medium grain sands or light gravels and medium sands, vapor is going to move around. And things, and what can transport it and help move it around is groundwater. So the depth to groundwater is real important. The direction of groundwater, all those things are all environmental factors that make a difference. How much was spilled? Groundwater conditions, how fast does it flow? Is there any upstream sources, within a quarter mile, half a mile, that could affect the groundwater that could bring you vapor intrusion to your site? And surface confining layers, is there an aquitard or an aquiclude? Or is it all clays under there and things just don't move? Or real tight shales and clays, like in Pennsylvania, that can happen. So those kinds of things are really important to take into account. Underground conduits. If there's piping that comes onto your site from the middle of the road and across the street is a Superfund site, that could be a conduit for you getting vapor intrusion to your site. Storm sewer, sewer drains, underground electrical lines, water lines, all those things are usually laid in a bed of gravel in a trench. That gravel is very porous and then becomes a conduit for all kinds of vapor. I don't know that I need to go over the overview, but, basically the regulations, the current standards only dictate that you identify if there's a potential for vapor intrusion on your site, from off your site, period. There's no need to do a separate report. Phase 1 is detailed enough to do it. And let's just really quickly, we're going to look at a rec check report with vapor in it and really quickly go over it. But all the historical information, aerial photos, fire insurance maps, city directories, and a radius search regulatory report like our rec check is all you need to find out exactly whether you have the potential. Doesn't mean there is a problem there, that whether you have a potential for vapor intrusion. That's all you're trying to do and all you have to do in a phase 1. Now, a lot of times you're going to identify actual recognized environmental conditions that are existing currently on the site. But it's also your job to identify any potential recognized environmental conditions. And that's potential for vapor intrusion. So you really need to follow that. By using a complete field checklist and comprehensive report writing template like we provide our clients for free, in our template, things automatically shoot in, you will be covering yourself for vapor intrusion. And that's very important. You need to make sure when your site inspector or you go out into the field that you don't forget something. You don't miss something. You know what's on the adjacent sites real quick. And then you can sit down and take that data and the historical data and draw your conclusions. And you're really, in writing a phase 1, building facts for a case of why something is an recognized environmental condition, just like a lawyer building a case. So you see something in an aerial, you note it. You see something in the site walk, you note it. You see something in the regulatory database search or rec check report, you note it. And all those build a case for a recognized environmental condition. Pretty cool, right? So ERS stands behind all our data. No other database company has $2 million worth of errors and emissions and professional liability insurance. And that's environmental errors and emissions and professional liability insurance. So let's say you have $1 million environmental errors and emissions or professional liability insurance. And you buy someone else, our competitors report that they don't have environmental insurance. I mean, the policy form must say environmental is covered. Ours does. We'll give you a copy of it anytime you want it. But if you're using a company that doesn't show you that, then you're covering them with your insurance and you're liable. The very minute you review their data, you're saying their data is correct, accurate, and you're liable for it. Good luck. You may not have gotten caught now, but somewhere along the line you could, and you don't want that to happen. So let me just really briefly go over why, for vapor intrusion, our rec check or radius search report is unique compared to anybody else's vapor intrusion, rec check report or radius search report. So basically, this is our standard rec check report. Pretty cool, right? The real first thing you want to do when you get one of our reports Make sure you're reviewing the right site, especially if you get a lot. So right here, we see the site, right? The other thing is to get around, you click the bookmarks. The bookmarks you can get around anywhere quick, find details. The next thing you do is you go to the 16th of a mile radius map and look at it. Right away you can tell if you've got concerns around your site. Red is bad to the bone, yellow is you need to review it because the agency didn't give us enough detail on whether it's open or closed or a concern or not. And green is good to go. It's cleaned up, it's closed case, whatever. You can get all the details, map ID details, by just clicking here. But the one unique thing that nobody else has is we map all air permits. What is air permit? Air permits are the use of volatile organic chemicals in a business. It could be a dry cleaner, a printer, a auto body shop. Doesn't matter. It's a license to release hazardous materials into the air. From this, you can see what sites are near to you and you can read the details. Have they had a spill? Have they had anything going on? Do you, during the site walk, just need to snoop around that site a little bit to make sure there's no monitoring well and looks like housekeeping is good? All those things. Also, when you're working on residential properties, I mean, if you were in the middle of these commingled dispersion plumes based on prevailing wind supplied by NOAA, you would be concerned. I don't know that I'd want to live in that. Especially, this is downtown Boston with all these things commingling different chemicals and then channeling between the high rises. Man, is that good air to breathe? I don't know. But you got the data to help you with vapor intrusion. So that's all I'm going to do right now. Does anyone have any questions? Any concerns? Want me to anything like that? I think this, I hope you learned a little something and picked up a little something today. Part 2 is October 23rd, which is next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Go ahead and sign up on our website under webinars. You should be following us on social media because we give you up-to-date information on ERS and things that come up. So go ahead and tune in to us on any social media platform, from LinkedIn, Facebook, you name it. We'd love to hear comments. But nothing political, please. That's about it. If there isn't any questions, I really appreciate you guys all attending. We really appreciate those of you who are our current clients. And if you want to become a client and get copies of this stuff and these presentations, be great. We also do webinars for companies, for all their employees and that kind of stuff. And we can shape them to fit, you know, how you guys do business and how you do your phase ones and that kind of stuff. Thank you. Yeah, I understand that BS is okay, but, you know, unfortunately, recently, our politics has gotten so you can't, there's some people you just can't talk about politics anymore because they take offense to it, and it's just wrong. Democracy is we should be able to talk about anything and still be friends at the end of it, no matter what each other's beliefs are. It doesn't matter, because talking about them helps us understand them and work with them and deal with them. And so, you know, it's just a shame where our politics are right now. So hopefully it changes in the wind. So Well, again, thank you very much. Thank you for attending, and everybody have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon and day. And please attend any of our next webinars. I'm not sure if we have one tomorrow or not, but uh, we hope you attend. Now, I guess we don't. Next week, we've got some fun ones. We started where we review aerial photos and what to look for. And I pull out of the tens of thousands of phase ones we did, cool aerial photos. And then, excuse me, we go over surface features shown in sidewalk photos. And it's kind of cool and it's fun. And we get a lot of people participating. And we have 40, 50 people attending these webinars. So we change the photos up every webinar. And you should think about, especially some of your new people attending these webinars, because it helps them spot things and stuff. And again, remember, I don't know it all. So some of the photos, aerial photos, some people said a whole bunch of things I didn't even think about. And so we all collectively used our multiple brains and identified everything in these aerial photos and site photos, and it was fun. And I think it went an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and a half, and we just had a blast. So if you're interested in attending those webinars next week, they are fun and they're informative, and you get to participate more so than in something like this where I'm just presenting facts. Not fake news, facts. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful day. Good afternoon. And thank you for attending. Bye-bye.